Stop expecting everything to go smoothly and easily. I'm going to repeat this to you, my subscribers. Yes, you who are watching this video. Stop expecting things to start off well. Now, what do I mean with this? Let me give an account. A lot of times we are deceived, or we are led astray, or maybe we're not led astray, maybe we're not deceived, but we are distracted because things go so well. Let me explain. Christ said that in this life we will have tribulation, but that we should be of good cheer because he has overcome the world. That means he was talking to believers. That means that as a believer, you can expect to have tribulation during this lifetime. Now, tribulation will include persecution, affliction, troubles that appear out of nothing. It will include spiritual attacks. It will include psychic attacks, all of that. Those things are not fun things. Those are not things you should even want to have to deal with. But understand, it will happen when you are following Christ. Now look, about the people in the world, they're lost already. But the devil is using this trick on people. People have their expectations that are based on their conditioning that they received during childhood. Those expectations are the extension of the culture they grew up in. They have expectations how they should be treated, what is respectful, what is not respectful, what is polite, what is not polite, what is valuable, what's not. And a lot of people, they never check their expectations. So they have their view of what's right, but their view of what's right is not in agreement with Scripture. It's not in agreement with Christ. And because it's not in agreement with Christ, they are deceived. And look, something can be recorded in Scripture, but just because it's recorded in Scripture doesn't mean you should agree with it. Let me give an example. There is this part in Scripture, in Dutch, they put a title above called the Song of Moses. And in the song, it is written, "Our days are filled with trouble. Our days are 70 years if I strength 80 years." Hold on a minute. Moses became 120 years old in the strength of his youth. You can read it in the book of Deuteronomy. So it couldn't be Moses that sang this song. Who were singing this song? This was a folk song among the Israelites. They were complaining and murmuring that they had a hard life, that they only lived 70 years if they had luck 80 years. Hold on a minute. Genesis chapter 6 says the days of man shall be 120 years. Elsewhere in Scripture, both in Old and New Testament, it's confirmed that you will be crowned with long life and that your youth will be renewed even into old age. So, what's correct now? It is true, it's recorded in Scripture. What I've just said about people having a hard life, 70 years to live, maybe 80 years. It's recorded in Scripture. Okay, it's true. It's true, it is written there, but what's written there is not true. Not for those who are in agreement with Christ. For example, it's written in Scripture that having children is a reward of the Lord. That having children is something great. That the Lord even commanded our first parents, Adam and Eve, to multiply and fill the earth. And there is this book called Ecclesiastes, where it's written, the day that one dies is better than the day someone is born. So to die is much better than so hold on, so he exalts death above life? Hold on a minute. That's not in agreement with even the Old Testament, especially not in agreement with Christ. So it is written there in the book, but just because it's written there doesn't mean you have to agree with it. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because a lot of you have expectations about what is good, and the devil's playing into what you consider good. And indeed, you will get a good out of it. But the enemy will give you something good to distract you for something much better and much lasting. The enemy will give you short-term fixes that will cancel themselves out over time. Because a short-term fix can never be sustained over time. It can't. I'm going to repeat it. The enemy will grant you something good, which is beneficial for real. It is beneficial, but only in the short term. And that good that you receive is hindering you from the long-term solution and the long-term blessings, from the long-term benefits. So again, Check your expectations. Look, when I look at crime documentaries and they talk about those cases, how someone was betrayed or murdered or they were taken advantage of or they were kidnapped, there's one pattern I've noticed, and many researchers and also police officers may agree with me, is that when the perpetrators came into the lives of the future victims, it was all well. It all went well. They were respectful. They were kind. They knew when to talk, knew when to shut up. It was a beautiful picture, but the later victims did not see the big picture, because if they would have looked at the big picture, they would have noticed that things weren't right. Now, I'm not blaming the victims for what happened to them because I don't know all the facts, but from what is presented, you can, if you would have just looked at the bigger picture instead of being stuck within your own expectations, you would have noticed things. Okay, this video is about 6 minutes now. I didn't want to make this long, but I felt I need to say this to you. Check your expectations. Make sure you are in agreement with Christ. Look at the bigger picture, not just at your feelings or how you think about things. Don't lean on your own understanding. That being said, be at peace. Shalom.